The last part during the sprint is the sprint review, and after that the team will probably do a retrospective. But this is the point in time where you take that potentially shippable product increment and you look at it and you go, okay, how does this align to the sprint goal? How does this align to the vision and the strategy and the mission and the purpose of what we're trying to create for the organization? And so now you're coming full circle in the 4D model to drive. And you're going to drive to success with as many iterations as you need in order to be able to deliver what it is that you're trying to deliver, whether it's a product, service, or result. Okay. And you'll notice that I included the cascading vision there. Out of the retrospective, you should be getting items that you may want to communicate back up the food chain. And that's the link back, and that's the power of the dominoes. Those videos are in the FCP training that's online here on YouTube. And you can see that just a little domino can knock over a really huge block as you go up the succession. So the team should choose maybe one retrospective item per quarter and communicate that back up. Because if the executive has 100 teams that's working for them, they all have 10 items that are just must-have items, the executive is going to get 1,000 items that they're supposed to work with in their backlog. That's not going to happen. So you need to be able to choose that one thing that will make the most difference. And we go through the power of the one thing in the Flow Certified Professional Training video series. So, but it's really important here, coming out of the retrospective, which is in addition to the sprint review, you need to be able to make that link back and do the link back going up the food chain. And a company that can do that well is going to tear up the market. So this is what it looks like end to end, where you have your definitions, where you've got the product owner, Scrum Master, and the developer on the team all thinking different things, even though they might be using the exact same words. And they're looking at that and they're thinking, oh my, okay, well, let's put it in the backlog. And then through the iterative sprint planning, sprint after sprint after sprint, as those sprint backlogs are created and everybody starts agreeing on, so they've distilled agreement, when they are agreeing on what it is that they're going to deliver, when they go to delivery, okay, D3, deliver, in those sprints, in those daily work that they're doing down at the people task level, at the end of the sprint, you bring it back full circle, making sure that what you just produced in the way of incremental product, service, or result, that it actually is matching up to the sprint goal and ultimately to the vision for the product or service or result that you're trying to deliver. This is really powerful. This is how you apply leadership to Scrum, or for that matter, pretty much any Agile methodology, since over 70% of all Agile is Scrum. This covers 70% of all Agile. And in the cases where you're doing Kanban or you might be doing XP, the 4D model might look a little bit different, overlaying those models, but it still works. And this is why the vision is so important. And I already said this at the beginning. The product backlog should encompass the entire vision for the product. And Ted and I have taught that for 25 years. And so this is the same picture. I drew it on a flip chart. You'll see that we have vision strategy with the disconnect lines here. This is actually probably drawn a little bit better. people, tasks, and then back to vision and strategy. And you'll see it all begins with the vision. You got your big product backlog, you got your team. They're distilling the sprint backlog via sprint planning. You go to delivery and you do your 2 to 4 week increments with your daily Scrum meetings or daily standoffs. And you end up with your incremental product, service, or result. And it could be potentially shippable and all those good things. And then you do the sprint review and the sprint retro. And both the review and the retro need to tie you back to the sprint goals and to the vision. If you're not linking it back to the vision, then you could be able to deliver things quickly and still be delivering the wrong thing. This is exactly what happened with one of the customers that I worked with in the last couple of years, where they'd been using Agile for 9, almost 10 years. They were trained by the best. And yet, they were able to get things out the door quickly, but the teams were getting demoralized and discouraged because, yes, they were getting things quickly out the door, but what they were getting quickly out the door was wrong. And so, if you go back to the flow, anti-flow slide that we talked about many videos ago, they were down in the right-hand corner where they were able to just shoot things out the door lightning fast, but the vision was wrong or the vision was unclear, and so they were delivering the wrong things often, more often than they should, and so it began a downward spiral, and we were brought in to help with the reboot and try to breathe some life back into the teams and back into the organization. But that organization did not embrace the fact that down in that organization corner of the box that we've used so many times, we did surveys and we did interviews and we gathered all the information, and it was stunning. Almost all of the work that needed to be done was down in the organization box. But instead of the executives taking that and being serious about it and saying, oh, we need to change. Ooh, this is a big backlog. Instead of doing that, they delegated it out. And you want to know what happened? Yeah, you're right. Absolutely nothing, because the minute that they delegated it back out, they violated the walk. That means everybody knew that they were just talking the talk. They were not walking the walk, that they weren't within the journey. And that is why people started leaving and telling the organization, thanks, no thanks, I'm going to go work someplace else, and hopefully they'll have a little bit better culture. And, you know, it's usually you jump out of the frying pan and into the fire when you do that, but it's going to take a long time for that organization to change when the leadership refuses to acknowledge that they are the ones that need to make the change. So you can have the best Scrum ever, you can have it turbocharged using flow, and you can be shooting things out at light speed, but if the vision is either fractured, missing, or broken, you're going to be delivering the wrong things, and your teams are going to get discouraged, and it all comes back to leadership. And I don't know how much more we can hammer on that, but it really boils down to the leadership of the company. And I'm trying to encourage the leaders to look at, okay, look in the mirror and ask yourself the question, am I the problem? That's a tough exercise to do. Most leaders, frankly, don't have the capacity or the capability to be able to do that. But for those organizations that do have the leaders that are willing to go on that journey and make those changes, the downstream results will be stunning and remarkable, because we've seen that happen over and over again, that when the leadership is with and they actually walk the talk and they just don't talk the talk, when they actually get down in there and do what they're supposed to do and create the supportive management that needs to be there and demonstrate courage and true servant leadership, those are the organizations that are still going to be here, while every 10 years, 25% of the Fortune 500 is hitting the rubbish piles because the leadership was either unwilling or unable to change. So ultimately, the choice is yours as the leaders, but you need to be crystal clear about this, that it takes courage and it takes commitment to say, okay, I'm going to go on this journey. I'll do the change with you. I'm not perfect, but hey, let's learn this together. If you're already halfway to agreeing to do that, you're going to win. So it really breaks down to a very simple question. As we shared with the value statement poster, where every time an executive violated one of the values, the employee put a check mark next to the value that was violated. For vision, it's equally important for the leadership, from the board to the C-level to the executives to the teams, to not just talk the talk, but actually walk the talk. So the question is are you walking the talk for your vision? If the answer is yes, then it will be balanced like it is in this picture. When we talk about talk, we talk about true vision, or the stated vision, what you actually end up writing down, and that ideal to which you're actually trying to achieve. Okay? So, conversely, if the vision's not in balance, if you answer the question about your vision, are you walking the talk? And your answer is no. If they're not equal, then the vision is fractured. And I almost without exception, I can guarantee you that politics will arise. Basically, with a fractured vision, that means it's broken. Well, that means it's probably in at least a couple of pieces. That means you have probably at least two or more visions, which means, by definition, you have division. Now, this doesn't mean that it's wrong to have divisions in a company, because the finance department, they're not going to have the same vision as the marketing department or the same as the operations department. They're all going to have different visions, but they all should link back to the overarching vision of the organization. 9 times out of 10, they're not. Okay, everybody's off doing what they think is best for the organization. So division isn't always a bad word, especially if you're talking about departmental divisions. But that also gives rise to silos and silo thinking and all of the different issues that we run into organizationally with all these different divisions and departments. So basically what's happened is the delivered vision versus the defined vision. We're looking at something that where the true and actual vision, the walk, is not reflecting the talk, what's been implied or even written down. So if it's fractured, that fractured tips the balance, puts the vision out of whack. That means that it's not agreed to. There's no agreement. The agreement has not been distilled. When you do not have distilled agreement, that will automatically lead to politics, and worse, compensating practices are going to pop up all over the place in the organization in order to offset the fractured vision. So this actually costs companies millions or billions of dollars a year having misalignment. And so, as a leader, I would think that they would want to have alignment. At least if I was leading the company, I would want the people to have visions that are in alignment with the overall vision of the organization. Without that alignment, it's going to be a very bloody war.